Hello, everyone, and welcome to AMPIA's latest Lunch and Learn webinar with today's focus on the Rosie Award-winning film, Before I Change My Mind. My name is Jenny Steele. I'm a TV host, producer, and actress here in the city, and I'm honored to be your host today. Now, before we begin, we wish to acknowledge the traditional territory of the Indigenous peoples of this land, including the nations of Treaty 6, 7, and 8, and the Métis Nation of Alberta. We are grateful to work, live, and create upon this territory. As the original storytellers and keepers of this land, we have much to learn from the First Nation and Métis people. We'd like to thank Alberta Film, the Edmonton Arts Council, and Telefilm for financially assisting this AMPIA webinar and for supporting professional development in our province. And we'd also like to thank Matt Waterworth for his technical assistance. Without him, this would not be possible. So a huge thank you to Matt. Now, we invite you to participate in today's Lunch and Learn by writing any questions or comments you have in the right-hand column to the right of your screen, and I'll do my best to answer as many as I can within the hour. Now, with that said, I'm pleased to welcome our two guests today. We've got Katrina Beatty, who's an Edmonton producer from Loud Whisper Productions, and Vaughan Murrae is an Ontario-based teenager, and she's our lead performer. Hi, guys. So good to have you today.
Hi there.
Hey, now together they worked together on the feature film Before I Change My Mind, which recently made its Edmonton premiere. This drama was inspired by director Trevor Anderson's challenging coming-of-age story in Red Deer, gender identification, and the need to be accepted. Before I Change My Mind won Best Scripted Feature and Best Screenwriter at this year's Rosie Awards. Congratulations. Now, thank you both so much for joining us, and we cannot wait to hear from you both. So let's begin with Katrina. When did you get involved with film production, and how did your career evolve to where you are now, at the producer of Before I Change My Mind?
Oh, that's like such a big question. I worked on my first professional set before I went into the 10th grade. And I got to work with people that are like, at the time, they just all seemed larger than life. And now they're colleagues. Like, it was like Wes Doyle was shooting this thing, and Brenda Turning was ADing, and Terry Winnick was directing. And it was a video called Parenting After Separation that you had to watch if you were getting divorced in Alberta. So it was like a weird mentorship opportunity for teenagers. But that's kind of what kicked off this whole thing. After that, I kind of knew what I wanted to do, and I just didn't know how to go about doing that, like, for a living. So then it became a matter of figuring out how to turn this thing that I love to do into a career. I went to film school out in Montreal, loved it out there, but wasn't going to make my films in French, and it didn't seem like the right fit for me. So came back to Edmonton thinking I would stick around long enough to like pay off some debt and live in my parents' basement for free. And then I found a community here that I really love, and they're the reason that I've stuck around and didn't just run away to some other market somewhere else. And there's a tremendous number of benefits to producing films in smaller communities that aren't so exhausted by the concept of film production. Like, if you're in New York, people are just annoyed that Law and Order has shut down yet another street because they're filming there that day. Whereas here, people are super excited about the idea, and they want to know like how they can get involved and what they can do. So all of that kind of makes a lot of sense when you're kind of trying to produce low budget indies. And Trevor Anderson and I met working at the Film and Video Arts Society of Alberta. And from there, we made a number of projects together, number of music videos, and a couple short films, I guess. And then this came along, and it seemed like a good fit for both of us. I love the script, and I don't know. I think that gets us to the movie, I guess.
Yes, and it's just unbelievable. I mean, your performance, Vaughan, was absolutely perfection. Like, you were so captivating, and I'm curious to hear how you got involved in acting and what you'd say you'd like the most about it.
I think I didn't really always kind of like know I was gonna act. I think as a kid that I never really realized how much I would enjoy it. I got involved when I was like late teens, probably like 15, and originally we were just gonna check out modeling and see how that went, but then it kind of, I got asked the question, do you want to do modeling or acting? And I was like, I'm gonna do acting because that sounds fun. And yeah, honestly, uh, this production was the first lead role that I'd ever gotten and the first feature film that I've ever been in. And it's really opened my eyes to sort of like how much I love acting. I think this was an amazing opportunity. I think everyone on set and everyone that I worked with were so amazing. And the feeling of, I guess, becoming another character is just so like addictive to me in a way. I just kind of love that process of like figuring out who this character is and why they do what they do. And that's what I did with Robin. And I think it was just so much fun to do. So yeah, I really enjoy acting and I was really lucky to be on this production.
Amazing. You became Robin. Like, that's,
Yeah.
you did. You really did. And
Yeah.
Katrina, that's a huge shout out to you for getting that performance out of Vaughan. Now, quick question, Katrina, does Vaughan sound a little bit staticky to you, or is it just on my side?
Yeah, they do sound a little bit.
I can try putting in headphones.
Sure, maybe let's give that a go. There's just a bit of a crackle. We'll see if we can.
How's this? Do I sound better?
There's still that little crackle. It's kind of just like a little, okay, try again.
A little fuzz.
Yeah, there's like a bit of a crackle there, but we'll get it sorted. We'll get it sorted.
Okay.
I'll get Katrina her next question, and then in the meantime, we'll get it sorted on the other end. Okay.
Okay.
Now, before I change my mind, it's a complex story with a young cast. Now, what is the story about, and where did the idea for the script come from, and why was it important to cast from the trans and non-binary community, Katrina?
Okay. So the story came from our director, and so the script was written by Trevor Anderson and Fish Krakowski. So Trevor grew up in Red Deer in the 80s, and he had people ask him all the time, are you a boy or are you a girl? And that is kind of the crux on which this film begins. And so it started out as sort of a semi-autobiographical piece of film, and then it shifted a little bit here and there as we figured out what direction we were going to take with it, in terms of the casting. So the casting began as kind of a very open, are we looking for essentially anybody from the trans community, anyone from the non-binary community? Like, we were pretty open-minded to whoever could kind of come and fit into that role. And then as we went along, we became a little bit more educated to what felt like it was working and what didn't. And so we got just a little bit more specific with who we were looking for in terms of, is it female to male transition, male to female transition, or non-binary? And then once we finally did lock in this person who is Vaughan, a few things shifted there to sort of accommodate the fact that, Vaughan identifies as non-binary. And so they, to bring that authenticity into the script, we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to make it feel like it's working for them. So so we shifted some things here and there, just to make that feel right. But as far as why and why it's important to kind of look to that community to do that, I think it's almost a no-brainer. Like, it just seems like, why wouldn't you do that? You've got a community of people that can draw on their own experience with being part of the LGBTQ community and bring that into this performance that's sort of essentially demanding that at the heart of the question. So why wouldn't you look for that authenticity from that performer? And also, why wouldn't you give that opportunity to someone from a community that maybe hasn't been given enough opportunities to have a leading role in a film? So yeah, as far as the why, like I think it only benefited us to seek out somebody from the community uh, that was being represented in the film. But at the same time, it was never a question of would we or won't we do that. It was always just a given that that was going to be how it was going to go.
Yeah, you put it perfectly. It's authentic. The performances and the whole film feel so much more authentic because you did that. And that leads us back to you, Vaughan. Now, as you said, this was your first lead performance role. So obviously huge congrats to that. Now, what drew you to the role of Robin, and what did you find most rewarding about getting that opportunity?
Sorry, could you repeat the question? You kind of glitched out in the beginning.
Oh, sorry, honey. What attracted you to the role of Robin, and what would you say was most rewarding about getting that opportunity?
I think the biggest thing that attracted me to Robin in the beginning was the fact, the script in general. Like after I had done the audition, I was sent the script, and reading through it, like the biggest thing that stood out to me is like they didn't they didn't use any gendered language with Robin. Like that was one of the first things that stuck out to me. And the fact that this is a script that's set in like the 80s, like 1980s Red Deer or like mid like Alberta, right? Like central Alberta. It's like it's really like I was really happy that that was in there, and it drew me immediately. And I think that the script and Trevor and Fish, they both did a really good job of I guess I think a lot of queer media right now, and a lot of queer media in general is so focused on I guess the before of many queer people. So like what happened before the transition, or how are they affected in that way, or the end of the film is usually a big coming out. And while that's good, like it's good to tell those stories, it's also important to have stories where queer people can just exist and it's not the focus. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that what immediately drew me to this film was the fact that Robin is Robin. And although they ask, are you a boy or a girl in the beginning, like, what are you? By the end, the question is more, who are you? Like, what kind of person are you? You know, what are you going to be? Are you going to be like a bully, or are you going to be a good person kind of thing? So I think that what immediately drew me to the script, and I was really, really interested in playing this character, I think.
Yeah, amazing. Well, we're going to play a clip. I'm so lucky. We're so lucky to have one today. And then what we'll do when we play the clip, what I'll have you do, Vaughan, is I'll have you leave and then come back. And I think that hopefully might fix your audio while the clip is playing. Now, this clip is the first one that we're going to show now. This is the hotel scene where Robin faces a tough decision. So take a look.
Hey, see if there's a porno channel.
Ew, no, let's just watch this.
How was Fort Edmonton Park?
Great. Don't you know? Natalie got attacked by a turkey.
No way.
She's like piss.
That's our last one. Give me that.
How'd you get beer anyway?
We bought it.
You did not.
Madonna bought it for us.
You did not meet Madonna.
Yes, we did. See?
Whoa.
Wow. A drawing of Madonna. Case closed.
You did that drawing of me at the rocket ship.
That's amazing. It's okay.
Oh, you're right. It's terrible.
Hey, Marnold. How's the fishing going?
It's not my magazine. That's right. It's Chev's fishing magazine.
We brought more magazines. Check these out. Oh, ew. You guys are disgusting.
Boys are so horny.
Horny virgin.
Hey, Marnold, you want a beer?
Why are you guys so mean to him? We're not. Here you go, bud.
No, thank you.
What? Not allowed to drink? Quit it. I can't hear. Yeah, be quiet. Or get caught.
I just don't like the taste.
As if you've ever had it before.
You just said it tastes like piss. I don't need to try it.
I think you should try it. Piss tastes good. Real mature Chev. What? I drink piss all the time. You do know what piss tastes like, don't you, Arnold? Come on, Natalie, let's go. Look, you're making the girls leave.
What the shit do I care?
Language. You better wash your mouth out. Quit it. Get off. Stay down. Stay.
Now that is such a pivotal moment in the movie. I mean, I think everyone who watches it can relate. At some point in their life, you've been in that position where you don't want to do something, but you're going to do it just to try to fit in. And Vaughan, your face, it's just, you've expressed those emotions so perfectly with Robin's character. Now, Katrina and Vaughan, can you talk about that scene and the challenges associated with such an emotional moment?
Yeah. That scene was a little hard for me to film in the beginning because Justin, who plays Tony, is such a kind person. So I didn't want to pour the fake beer on him. But I think in that moment, Robin's thought process was they weren't really thinking about Tony. I think I had to get that in my head. They're not thinking about Tony or how Tony feels. The only thing that they see is Carter, right? This is if I have to do this to become friends with Carter, I'm gonna do it. You know what I mean? Because that's their thought process. They don't see Tony at all.
Right? And Carter's the main character. He's kind of the bully in the film.
Yes, yeah. Carter is the one who gives the alcohol to Robin.
Yes.
So they're like, I just need to do this so I can fit in with him, because this entire time, this is the person I've been trying to become friends with, right? So yeah, they don't really see Tony. I think I had to sort of just kind of take Justin out of my brain and be like, yep, this is Robin's only thinking about Carter. So that's kind of how that scene went down.
Yes. Katrina?
Katrina, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not just Justin that, those kids, for all the dynamics that you see on screen there, those kids all adored each other. So even though they're playing all of these hierarchical dynamics that you find in school, off screen, all of them are just so thrilled to have each other's company most of the time. So yeah, I think that helps at least create some trust in a moment like that, which is, again, it's a really pivotal moment. It's the biggest moment we see of Robin saying, okay, maybe I'm going to choose to go this way to fit in. And that becomes really, really key in their journey. It's a real low point for that character in terms of who are you? Because that, Vaughan was mentioning earlier, it's the film isn't about what are you, it's about who are you. And in that particular moment, Robin, is trying something on that is not what an audience is hoping to see from them. So it's kind of a pretty heartbreaking moment. And Justin, who plays Tony, Tony, that character is just basically abused through the entire film, but they get to have their own epiphany and their own sort of coming of age, coming to terms with who they are moment as well. And eventually they figure out how to stand their own ground, which I think these moments that happen to them are fairly pivotal in that taking place as well. So
And for our audience members who haven't seen the film takes place in 1987, correct? 1987? Yes. And as soon as I turned on, like as soon as I started watching it, it was so nostalgic. It brought me right back to the 80s. I'm an 80s baby. And it gave me that feeling, almost like that Stranger Things feel, where it brings you right into that time frame. And it was unbelievable how I felt like I was right back in the 80s living those same moments. So I just wanted to say congratulations on such an amazing setting. Like it felt so real.
Well, we have to give credit to that to both our location manager Ryan Ledoux and our production designer Brianna Kolibaba, because Ryan set the foundation, and then Brianna came in with her team, and they all built it up from there. And they really made miracles happen with limited means. So they pulled off a lot.
Fantastic. Now, Katrina, you enlisted the help of the GLAAD Media Institute. Now, GLAAD's Vice President, Nick Adams, worked closely with the cast and crew Before I Changed My Mind. Walk us through the training and explain how it impacted production, please.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, Nick was an invaluable resource. Like from the get-go, Trevor would consult with him on script, casting, and he's kind of the go-to guy. If you don't know what GLAAD is, it's essentially a advocacy group for LGBTQ in media, and they're more prevalent in the United States. So if you're in the United States, you probably know who they are. Like Nick was the guy that prepped Oprah Winfrey when she did that interview with Elliot Page about them transitioning. So yeah, massive resource there. And Nick was so on board with the film early on that he came on board as an executive producer and essentially became this sort of guru of how to properly deal with inclusion and the LGBT community when you're working on a film set, and to make sure that your film set feels safe for everybody involved. And so he gave this presentation that he'll give to like Sony and Universal, and he came in and we made it mandatory for all of our cast and crew to attend, and anybody that started later in the process that wasn't able to attend, we were able to provide them with a video link to sort of take this training a little bit later on if they started partway through. But essentially, he went through the difference between sort of who I love versus who I am, because the letters in LGBT are different things. That like LGB, that's who I love, versus the T, that's who I am. So sexual gender identity versus your like who you essentially would fall in love with, and so that became super important. He also went through how to politely how to deal with how to make an environment feel inclusive. Like one example was using pronouns on a call sheet, but it was also super important that we didn't insist on anybody providing pronouns. It was a voluntary act. If somebody felt like they know what their pronouns are, they can provide those to production, and we'll put those on the call sheet. And that kind of provides a safe space for everybody to know, okay, well, if I'm not sure what pronouns to use, I have this reference guide here. But if someone has chosen not to disclose them, maybe they're not far enough along in their journey that they feel comfortable disclosing them. So we talked about things like that, where like here are different ways that we can sort of make this environment feel inclusive. How do we deal with people misgendering people, like when you use the wrong pronouns? Because it happens. Like I think that people are, especially if you're not part of the LGBT community, people are not necessarily fully accustomed to using they them pronouns when their natural default for people wants to be to gender them just based on how the English language works. So we talked about how to deal with that when people get it wrong, you know. So yeah, Nick was just an invaluable resource to kind of go to and consult with, and figure out how to best approach everything, both on screen in terms of, are these characters coming across relatable, in terms of casting, what feels authentic, And then behind the scenes in terms of creating a work environment where everybody felt like they could show up and do their best work.
Amazing. Now, Vaughan, what was your experience like working with Nick, and how did his knowledge help make your performance better?
I think it was I think it was really nice attending the pre it was like a Zoom call. It was like a pre-meeting, like the mandatory meeting. I think what I really benefited from that was also like getting to see everybody as well on that meeting, and to like everyone could ask questions, right? And I think that was I benefited a lot from that, because we could ask specific things, like even as a non-binary person myself, like I still make mistakes. So I think it was really nice to just kind of have that. We talked about how it's okay to make mistakes and stuff like that, and it's all right to like get it wrong, as long as you're doing your best to like correct yourself after it happens, right? And as long as you're being respectful about it. So I think that's something that I really liked about having that, and then working with Nick Adams. He was really sweet. He was amazing.
Absolutely. And that's a perfect way to put it, Vaughan, is that it's important. It's okay to make the mistake as long as you correct it and you're learning. And that's, what people need to remember. Now, Katrina and Vaughan, how important is it to tell stories like this and at this time?
Would you like to start, or would you like me to start?
How about you start?
Yeah.
Okay. I stated a bit earlier, like how a lot of stories focus a lot on the journey of a queer person, and when queer characters are like a part of a story or a part of a piece of media, it often so heavily focuses on their queer identity, and that's important. Like it's nice to like have that, and to have our identities represented and shown, but it's also important to show that queer people can just be people outside of their identities, outside of their sexual orientation or how they identify, when it comes to gender or things like that, outside of their pronouns. It's nice to have characters just be characters, and I think that's what Before I Change My Mind does. It's focusing on who Robin is as a person, and their journey, and who they'll become, and that's just I think that's just so important, because it shows people that we're not just queer. We're not just queer people. We're people who happen to be queer. You know what I mean? And I think that's just so important to show everyone, because, especially in this day and age where, a lot of queer media is coming out now. And I think that we're slowly progressing towards positive, queer representation in media. We're still focused so heavily on a person's queer identity. So I think it's nice to have this. It's sort of refreshing to have a story where someone can just, be queer and figure out who they are as a person without, having this big coming out at the end, or having it just be about their gender. So yeah, I really enjoy being able to be a part of that. So
yes, absolutely, Katrina. And that's what you mentioned earlier too. This film wasn't about, what Robin is. It's who Robin is. That's what we wanted people to understand. It's discovering who this character is, right?
Yeah, I think that Vaughan just explained that really, really well. I think that's something that Nick Adams as well had mentioned that he was really drawn to about the script, is this idea, like, these are people who happen to be queer, not queer people who also happen to exist. And yeah, like in terms of the importance of telling, like, of course, these stories are important to be told, but I guess I don't know. Well, yeah, like it's tricky for me to examine it from that standpoint, because I don't go out there looking, I guess, necessarily for like, what's the story that needs to be told right now, so much as I'm like, oh, what's a story that I'm drawn to and that I can connect with and that I want to be married to for like the next 5 years of my life. So this story did that for me, and I do feel that it's important, and I do feel like definitely I think there are a lot of voices that are not and have not had enough time to be heard, and I think that I am interested in seeing some of those and helping see some of those stories come to fruition, because we haven't. So it's interesting to tell them because we haven't seen them yet. And so it's less like I'm out there going, oh, what's the story that's super topical and that we can make right now and is like missing in the zeitgeist. But it's more like, oh, here's a story that I'm drawn to. If I can relate to this in the content, I think maybe other people can relate to this in the content. And hopefully it, it will find an audience, but at the very least, I will have felt like my time was spent valuably telling a story that was worthwhile.
Yeah, finding your passion project. Yeah. Okay, now another clip. Before I Changed My Mind was filmed in various cities and towns across Alberta, including a couple of days in Red Deer. Now, the second scene we have to show you was shot in Red Deer and introduces us to Izzy, played by Lacey Oak.
That's so messed up.
I bought these for you. For my birthday.
Thanks. Happy birthday.
What's this?
Nothing. Carter pinched me, but it's nothing.
Are you okay?
I don't know. It's easier with you. It looks like it's falling on us.
It is.
Okay, so Izzy, who we get to meet in that scene, she's not present in the hotel scene, but she makes up the other half of the love triangle that we see between Robin and Carter. Now, this scene focuses on a moment where Robin and Izzy have a bit of exploration of their relationship. So, Vaughan, can you speak to the love triangle that we see in this movie? And Katrina, can you talk about the approach taken to capture that scene?
There's the love triangle is a little bit complicated. Izzy, she comes in like in the second half of the film. So in the beginning, it's mostly focused on just Robin and Carter and how their relationship grows. And you can see like a bit of they have a nice development or nice development. They're kind of like mean, but they have a development of a relationship. But also there's sort of this development of feelings in a way. And I think when Izzy comes in, right, it's in the beginning, it's sort of like Carter is developing feelings for Robin, but he's not exactly like, I don't know, he's confused about that in a way. He can be very confused about that because he's not really growing up in a time where like his sexuality is like being gay or bisexual. It's not really like okay during that time. It's yeah, it's it's the 80s. So even if he seems to be developing feelings for Robin, but when Izzy comes in, he kind of turns to Izzy, right? And we had a discussion about whether it's because he really likes Izzy, or maybe it's because he's using Izzy to like steer Robin away. And Robin is very jealous of that. And then it gets even more complicated with Izzy and Robin. Izzy seems to like Robin, so it's an actual love triangle, you know? So it gets really complicated. It's hard to put into words, but there's a lot of emotion, and there's a lot of confusion and a lot of questioning that goes on between the three. And I think that fits the central theme of the film really nicely. You know what I mean? There's no hard answers. You know, they're growing up and they're still questioning themselves. And I think the film does a really good job of representing that.
Yes, agreed. Katrina?
Yeah, I think sort of as Vaughan was talking about, you have these characters who maybe don't realize it or don't understand it yet. And in particular, Vaughan's character, you know, part of the reason why it's set in the 80s is because this language, non-binary, like that doesn't exist yet. So ultimately you have a whole, like this group of characters, none of whom have language to identify sort of what their sexual orientation is. Although you have these two, like in Carter and in Izzy, you have these two characters who seemingly would come across as straight, but then you start to get a sense of like the fluidity of sexual attraction. So there's room for, there's just like, you know, once Robin steps into things, there's room, like it's just like things aren't so black and white. And I think that's what sort of that love triangle really shows, is that there's these little attractions in different places. And I love that line where Robin says it's just easier with you. Because it's almost like they're trying to figure out how to relate to one another, and should it be easy, should it be difficult, like what is love, what is attraction, like how does that all work? And they're trying to figure it all out, and ultimately they just have these like little moments of these little moments together to kind of propel them forward in trying to figure out where they fit or what they want or who they love. And there's no real answers that come out of it. It's just kind of more questions, which I think is kind of true to life.
Absolutely. Well said. It is all, there are no solid answers. And even, you know, throughout the whole film, you're constantly seeing the emotions being pulled in different directions. And, you know, from the moment Izzy came into the triangle, I guess you'll call it, you can just see, you know, Robin's emotions trying to figure out, okay, where does she stand with Izzy? Where do they stand with Izzy? Where do they stand with Carter? It was a constant pull and shove, and you feel those emotions between all the characters in the film. Now, Vaughan, this was your first time as lead performer, and you were 15 when you made your debut. What was that like? And can you talk about the friendships that you made on set and what those relationships are like today?
It was like surreal, I think. Like when I first got the script, when the script was first sent to me, and I passed, you know, the audition process, and I was like actually gonna go like travel. It was my first time traveling as well, outside of Ontario, out of province. So that in itself was crazy to me. And then actually like getting like into Edmonton and like filming there was just a whole nother thing that was just so new to me. But like it was just so thrilling and so exciting, and it was an amazing opportunity. And then of course like working with everyone on set, like I was the oldest out of them all, so I feel like a little, you know, like the older sibling in a way. But yeah, I mean, everyone on set was just so like amazing. Like I know, like I probably said that so many times, and I've said that to so many people, but like it's true, you know what I mean? I've never met such just open-minded and kind people before. Like I've never really worked with such amazing people who I can call my friends, you know what I mean? And it's been like almost like a year, 2 years since like we first shot the film, and we're still contacting each other like through text messages and stuff, and happy birthday wishes and things like that. Yeah, like it's just like we recently had like a meetup in
Yeah.
Calgary for one of the premieres. And that was like, I think it's probably one of the last times we'll see each other like in person. So like everyone was crying and like, yeah, it was just like, they're all so sweet. They're all so amazing. And it was just, yeah, a great experience.
Yeah, well, you become a family pretty quick on set when you spend
Yeah.
such long days and long hours together. You know, you go through all the emotions together. So it's
Yeah.
a pretty special bond you guys probably have. Now, Katrina, can you describe working with Vaughan? Now, what kind of challenges came up working with an all teenaged cast, and what did you enjoy most about it?
Yeah, so I I will always say, I have said it repeatedly, and I will continue to say, I think the best thing that came out of making this movie is not even the movie. It's the love that all of these kids found for one another, and the community that they found with each other, and the way that they just gelled. Like, for these kids to figure out, oh, there's people out there like me that get me, and I can be myself around. That's so huge when you're a teenager and you feel like you don't fit in, and that's what some of these kids were coming from. They're coming from environments where they just didn't feel like they fit, not unlike our character Robin. But you've got all these kids who then get to meet up and fall in love with each other, and watching that happen was so precious. Like, it really, really was. Like, we on our last day, the day that we wrapped, I don't want to like out anyone in a bad way, but it's like the kids are just like bawling because they're so afraid they won't see each other again. And for so many of them, it's like, we have most of our cast is Alberta based, so it's like Edmonton, Red Deer, Calgary. And so for most of them, like, I'm just standing there, I'm like, guys, you're gonna see each other again. Like, it's not that far. And but they're just like, it's 3 hours away. And I was like, guys, you're gonna get driver's licenses. You'll be able to drive there. It's not. I promise, it's not so far. But they're just like, they just like devastated at the idea of not ever seeing each other again. And then, of course, this moment at the Alberta premiere was actually at Calgary International Film Festival, and all of these kids in front of the step and repeat just like merged into this glob of humans, just hugging each other so tightly. And it was the greatest thing I've ever seen, watching them do that. Like, it's just so lovely to see that these friendships are so real for them. And so my hope is that, like, 20 years from now, they're all still talking to each other, and one day, and they're like, remember when we made that movie together like 20 years ago? And and it's just like it was like the thing that brought them together, but their relationships have evolved like so far past that because they've stuck together since then. So that's my hope. And so I have so much love and fondness for that, through this process. Like, I cannot speak highly enough to it. But of course, it's like, it's huge. There are huge challenges involved in dealing with young people, on a film set, not the least of which is like the demands that you make of them in this industry are massive. Like, asking people to come work these long days with you, like, that's a huge ask. And for a lot of the cast, they get days off in between, they get to recuperate. But Vaughn worked every single day. Vaughn got no days off.
Wow.
Like, so Vaughn was a trooper, and and to not just like step up to the plate and work every day, but to carry the film the way that they did. And then on top of that, on the very first day, I just remember, like, I was running around trying to help everybody that kind of needed a hand. And then I finally had a couple minutes to go and stand behind the monitor and see what was happening. And I'm standing there and I'm watching, and I'm like, this thing might work, but it might work because like Vaughn's instincts are so good. Like, I don't know how at 15 they have that capacity. I don't understand where it comes from, but it's just like the best moments, the best things on screen were the moments in between the dialogue where you just let Vaughan be Robin, and Robin would like there's just like these undercurrents. Like I just remembered this one moment where it was like with the word no. I remember hearing no, and that word indicated both a love father and also at the same time a bit of a manipulation of a situation and I'm like all of that in one word. And who is this kid? Like where did they come from? And so that's like that is all super amazing, but you also then deal with the struggles of, you know, you've got a lot of teenagers on set and they're exhausted and you're asking them to work long hours and then you're asking them to work crazy hours. Like we had to work through the nights at sometimes. And so like there was some chaos that ensued on some nights just as a result of people being tired. And like there was one night in particular where we're trying to shoot the climax of the movie where it just felt like it was everything that could maybe possibly go wrong was maybe going wrong. But then 10 minutes later, everybody's laughing hysterically and you can't get anybody to focus to save your life. But it's just like one thing after another, and you've got someone crying here, and then someone's crying here, and then someone's laughing here, and you kind of just have to roll with it. Like the climax of the film is not as scripted because we had to go, okay, well, here's the time we have, and here are the circumstances and the players involved. So how are we going to use what we have in these circumstances to make this work? And that requires some sort of creative maneuvering in the moment. And that credit really goes to Trevor and to our DP Wes Myron and to our team like on the ground who are going, okay, if I shoot it this way, or if we cut this, or if we do this, here are the ways that we can get what we need to out of this, but maybe not have to like live so religiously within what the script initially identified as being what the story would be.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the impeccable segue, Katrina, because that leads us to our next clip, which is when Carter has his freak out. Now, this is the climax of the film. I won't give too much away, but like you said, there was a lot of long hours, a lot of pressure behind the scenes. So we'll hear more about that after we play the clip.
Carter, what are you doing?
Don't you look at me.
Carter, what the hell?
What are you doing? Carter.
Carter, get down from there.
Don't touch that.
Seriously, put it down, Carter.
Carter, it's not
Carter,
funny.
Stop it.
What was that for?
Carter, stop. Carter, what
Carter,
the hell?
get down. Get off. Get out.
What are you doing? Carter, put it down. Carter, don't. Carter, stop. Stop it.
Carter. What are you doing?
Stop. Carter, put it down.
Carter, get out.
And goosebumps again. Like I had them the first time and I have them again. The suspense in that entire scene is absolutely crazy. Now, Katrina and Vaughan, can you talk about what's going on behind the scenes and how the cast and the crew had to pivot for that moment?
Yeah, do you want to talk about that, Katrina?
Sure. Yeah. Just like a lot of what I was just describing was kind of pretty relevant to that scene. So, we had, that was one of the nights we were shooting through the night. So everyone's up all night. Everyone's exhausted. We shot for 25 days and that was in the last week. That was near the end of our run. So people are just exhausted and they've been pushed to the absolute max. And so, we had like a couple little, injury moments where, like one of our actors sort of had backed into the railing on the wall while they were in the middle of performing that scene, and that was sort of just when we talked to them after the fact, it was more jarring than anything. It was like they were trying to like be in that moment, and then all of a sudden, like just this knock in their back from this railing being there really threw them, and so that was kind of a thing that we had to just sort of stop and give that the time that it needed to, so that they felt comfortable again and they were okay, make sure they're fine. And I know like Vaughan had some moments, but I'll let Vaughan speak to that if they want to.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, mental health is a bit of a prominent theme, like in the specifically around Robin, right? There's multiple hints that, they probably have some sort of past trauma, as you saw with the flashbacks and that. And I myself have my own experience with like anxiety and panic attacks and stuff like that. So I was able to use that when I was playing Robin. But also, because I have that experience, it was really easy for me to play too much into it and end up working myself into an actual panic attack. So when we were filming that scene, it was a little late, and I was really lightheaded because I was breathing really heavily, like we were just doing take after take kind of thing. And because I was in character and I just wanted to keep doing it. So I was just like, okay, let's do it again and again. You know what I mean? Like I didn't want to stop, which might not have been the best choice. But yeah, I think I worked myself up a lot. And I just remember, like my memory from that evening was like I just remember my vision being a little black. And I was fine once the take was done. And I stood up, and then I think I just kind of stumbled down the stairs a bit, and I was like, oh, I'm not fine. And I started realizing that I was actually in a panic attack, experiencing a real panic attack. What's funny is that I don't actually remember much of what happened when that happened. I think I had like dissociated a little bit. So if you like, there's a specific take from when that happened where like in my mind, I hear Trevor call cut, but he didn't actually call cut, and I ended up smiling, and I don't remember doing that, which is just really weird to me. But yeah, like that happened. It was really late. And that's actually, I think, one of the lessons that I learned on set was how to, separate the character from myself, you know what I mean? And how not to work myself up that much that I'm actually affecting me instead of the character. So that's something that I think I took with me coming off of set and coming off of the filming. And I'm still kind of working on it, but yeah, that was an event that happened while on set.
Yeah, no kidding. That also just shows your commitment to that scene, that you want to just keep going take after take because you were so in the moment. So now, another question for you guys. Before I Change My Mind made its world premiere in Switzerland at the 17th Annual Locarno Film Festival. That's unbelievable. Now, Katrina, why are you so proud to have opened at that festival in particular? And what was the important development that came out of that festival thanks to your film?
Okay. So Locarno, it's not as well known as it maybe should be, which is largely because it doesn't screen a lot of content from North America. It's this was the 75th anniversary, and so it's been around as long as Cannes, and it is sort of known as more of like an auteur kind of festival. Like they want a lot of they want to see stuff with a point of view. They want to see, they're really open. They have a whole category for first and second feature directors. So they're really open to content from young, like at a feature level emerging creators. Which this was Trevor's first feature. So that's really great. But it is unlike any festival that I have ever attended in my life. Like you cannot go to Locarno and not know that this festival is happening. Like there's nowhere in town that you can be and not be aware that the entire town exists for this festival. It is like everything is becomes branded. The buses, Berlin has the bear, Locarno has a leopard. So the branding is all yellow, black with leopard print. And so store windows will decorate with their black and yellow clothing, and all the buses line themselves with this like leopard print tape. And like just everywhere you go in town, it's like it exists to serve this festival. And then at nighttime, there's one or two films every night that screen in the Piazza Grande, which is the town square. So you have like a European town square with all of the historical architecture, stunningly beautiful cobblestone. And then they put up a 4-story outdoor screen, and they figure out somehow to magically make sound work in a space that big. And then 8,000 seats every night are sold out. Rain or shine, they get sold out. And it's just like being in a space where audiences have that much support for cinema. It was like I was like, I'm gonna have a midlife crisis and move to Europe. Like that's what I was so jealous the whole way through, because I was watching so much content from people that I had never heard of, because I obviously don't know enough about European cinema. And I'm going in and I'm watching these films and I'm like, I would never have an opportunity to see this if I wasn't here right now. Like I would just never get the chance to see it. And yet everything I went to was sold out. Our screening was sold out, and we were a group of 13 people. And I don't know who all those other people were, but they came and they saw, and they don't know who we are. They don't care who we are. They just want to see cinema. Like, so the love and support up from the audience, like people actually take their vacation in August to come to the festival. Like, it's mind-boggling the way that people get out there and support. I was so jealous, and the freedom to create films without Hollywood hanging over your head, like without the expectation that this is what your films need to look like, because we've been conditioned to watch movies and expect them to be what Hollywood is producing, rather than, hey, there's actually this thing that is cinema as an art form that doesn't have to follow this pattern. Like, they're just totally fine with that over there. It's not even a second thought. In fact, when things got too contrived or too Hollywood, the audiences like would get hypercritical of it. So Locarno was, I cannot speak highly enough about what an amazing experience it was. It was like, as a filmmaker, as a cinema lover, like just so amazing to go and be there. And of course, the amazing part for us is that like when you get into a festival of that caliber, then you end up with a whole bunch of people asking you to like reaching out to you as far as distribution of the film. So that's what we're navigating now, is figuring out what we want the distribution to look like and how that's going to all play out. And a lot of that comes from sort of the prestige of getting a premiere like that. So it was an amazing experience just all around.
Fantastic. And then what was the important development that came out of the festival thanks to your film?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so this was so cool. This I forgot about this. Okay, so Vaughan won like an independent jury award kind of thing. Like, so like the journalists get together in Locarno and they put together a list of their own awards, and Vaughan won a performance award for their work in Before I Changed My Mind. But of course, historically, actor categories have been gendered. Actor, actress, like they're just naturally gendered categories. So what do you do with a non-binary performer? As a result of Vaughan and our film and just that kind of the influence that it had, the festival has now changed its performance categories. So they're from now on, they will all be non-gender identifying. So it'll be like best performer instead of best actor or best actress. And so the festival announced that shortly after the 75th wrapped up, that basically from the 76th year onwards, there'll be gender neutral performance categories, which is so cool. Like, I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
It is amazing. It is amazing. Now, before we wrap up, I just want to remind the audience if they have any questions to quickly get them in the chat before we have to leave. Vaughan, we're all excited to know what's next for you.
Currently I'm seeking new representation. I don't have anything in the works right now. I'm kind of like in that odd place. I'm 17 right now, so I'm kind of in that odd place where I'm too young to play an adult, but I'm also still a little too young, or I'm too old to play like anything younger than that. You know what I mean? So I'm in a little bit of a weird place. So I don't have any projects that I'm working on right now, but I am open to for work, and I'm totally like I'm totally free for like anybody out there who's like looking for a non-binary actor or someone to play a role. I'm here. I'm available. So
Yes.
yeah,
Well,
I'm acting.
this is just the beginning. Your career is going to take off. I can feel it. And Katrina, for our audience members who haven't seen your film yet, where can they eventually see it? Because I know they're probably all dying to take a look.
The best thing to do is to keep tabs on beforeichangemymind.com, because we're currently running around doing the best festival circuit, basically. So we're a little all over the place, and honestly, I can't even keep track of it. So beforeichangemymind.com has all of the latest festival screenings, and then and our social media, our Facebook page, Before I Change My Mind, is always current as well. And as soon as we have more news in terms of other ways to watch it other than at a festival, we will announce it on both of those platforms as well. So yeah, that's the best thing to do, is to keep up with it.
Well, it's a must see. Honestly, the film had me glued from the time I started to the time I finished. Congratulations to you both. I can't tell you how proud I am of both of you. And thank you both so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. And to all of our audience members, thank you so much for tuning in. And please don't forget to join us next week for another Lunch and Learn. We'll be talking to a couple of key people behind the documentary called A Young Man on November 16th. So stay warm, stay safe. Thank you again. And hopefully we'll see you next week. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.